Is it possible for a landlord to reclaim a unit for personal use, only to re-rent it after a certain period? How long must a landlord reside in a unit before considering re-renting it? And what exactly does this process entail? These are intriguing questions with answers that might just surprise you. Firstly, in Quebec, a landlord can indeed reclaim a unit for personal use. However, it's not as simple as moving in one day and moving out the next. In fact, the landlord must live in the unit for a minimum of 3 years before they can consider re-renting it. This is a mandatory duration set to protect the rights of the previous tenants and to ensure the landlord's intentions were genuine. So, what about the process of re-renting a unit? Well, it's a step-by-step procedure that requires careful attention. The first step is to ensure that the 3-year minimum occupancy has been fulfilled. The second step is to provide a written notice to the previous tenant, offering them the chance to reclaim the unit. This is a critical step, as it provides the previous tenant with the first right of refusal. The third step involves waiting for the previous tenant's response. They have 1 month to respond to the notice. If the tenant declines or fails to respond, the landlord can then proceed with re-renting the unit. However, if the tenant agrees to reclaim the unit, a new lease agreement must be negotiated. Does this mean the tenant has to attend a hearing? Not necessarily. A hearing is only required if there are disputes about the re-renting process that cannot be resolved amicably between the landlord and tenant. Now, what about tenant consent? Is it required for re-renting the unit? No, tenant consent is not required if the landlord has fulfilled the 3-year occupancy requirement and if the previous tenant has declined the offer to reclaim the unit. And finally, can the rent increase for new rentals? Yes, it can. However, the rent increase must be justifiable and in line with the rental board's guidelines. So to summarise, a landlord in Quebec must live in a unit for at least 3 years before re-renting it. The process involves providing the previous tenant with a written notice and the opportunity to reclaim the unit. A hearing is not always necessary, and tenant consent is not required for re-renting. And yes, the rent can indeed increase for new rentals, as long as it is within the rental board's guidelines. This process is designed to protect both landlords and tenants, ensuring fair and equitable treatment for all parties involved. So the next time someone asks about the process of re-renting a unit in Quebec, you'll have the answers at your fingertips.